This is Tom Doody, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Doody in a Google search for my site. BBC, obituary, George Michael. His talents as a singer, songwriter, and music producer made George Michael one of the world's biggest selling artists. Blessed with good looks, a fine singing voice, his stage presence made him a favorite on the live circuit. As he matured from teen idol to long-term stardom after early years in the duo Wham, he went on to build a solo career that brought him a string of awards and made him a multi-millionaire. But there were times when he battled with drugs and encounters with the police, made lurid headlines, and threatened to eclipse his musical talents. George Michael was born Georgios Kyriakos Panayitoyi in North London, 25 June 1963. His father, a Greek Cypriot restaurateur who had come to UK in the 50s, while his mother was an English dancer. It was not altogether a happy childhood. Michael later recalled that his parents worked constantly to improve their financial status, leaving little room for affectionate moments. I was never praised, never held, so I was exactly the little house on the prairie. It wasn't exactly Little House on the Prairie. He moved with his family to Hertfordshire while in his teens and met Andrew Wrigley, a fellow pupil at a local school. The two discovered they had shared interest in music and together with a group of friends formed a ska band which had a short-lived existence. In '81, Michael and Wrigley formed Wham. Their first release, Wham Rap, failed to trouble the charts before it followed up Young Guns, Go For It, established a group after they were asked at the last minute to perform it on the Top of the Pops, complete with dancers. The record quickly rose to number 3 in the UK charts. The duo initially adopted a leather-clad, rebellious image with songs such as Bad Boys, but moved to a more pop-oriented approach with the world's wake hit Wake Me Up, Before You Go Go, while the band members swapped their leather for more fashionable attire. With Michael very much the front man, it was almost inevitable that he would eventually strike out on his own. In 1984, singer Careless Whisper, while co-written by Wrigley, was to all intents and purposes, a George Michael solo effort. Indeed, it was credited to Wham, featuring George Michael in the U.S. Wham finally split up in 1986, and in the spring of the following year, Michael released I Knew You Were Waiting for Me, a duet with one of his musical icons, Aretha Franklin. He was also beginning to experience doubts about his sexuality. In an interview with The Independent, he blamed his depression after the Wham breakup on the dawning realization that he was not bisexual but gay. Legal battle. Michael spent most of 1987 writing and recording his first solo album, Faith, which was released in the autumn of that year. It went on to top both the UK and the US charts, going on to sell more than 25 million copies and winning a Grammy in 1989. The first single from the album, I Want Your Sex, caused some controversy, particularly on US radio stations. Many refused to play it, while others played versions subtitling the words for love, for sex. In any event, the single reached the top 3 on both sides of the Atlantic, the top three on both sides of the Atlantic. In 1988, Word Tour cemented Michael's status as a pop superstar, although a constant touring and adulation of thousands of screaming teenage girls left him feeling exhausted and only exacerbated periods of depression that he was now beginning to experience on a regular basis. Indeed, he refused to promote his second album, Listen Without Prejudice, Volume 1, and no videos were made to back up a single release. A much more introspective work than Faith, the album was aimed to a more adult audience. Michael performed in Live Aid concert in 1985. It failed to achieve the success of his previous work in the U.S., although there were contrasting fortunes in the UK, where it actually outsold Faith. While playing a concert in Rio on his cover tour in 1991, he met Anselmo Filippa, the man who would become his partner. Although Michael still did not publicly state that he was gay, their relationship was to be short-lived as Filippa died of a brain hemorrhage. In 1993, plans for Listen Without Prejudice, Volume 2, were scrapped amidst a legal dispute with the record company, Sony. In what proved to be a long, costly battle, Michael severed his relationship with Sony. In 1984, Michael released the single, Jesus to a Child, a tribute to his dead lover, Filippa. It went straight to number one in the UK. The single featured on the older album, which had been 3 years in the making when it was released in 1996, Coming Out. A dark and sometimes melancholy work, Older contained in a number of references to his sexuality and changed the image. It saw the long hair and bearded replaced by a cropped haircut and leather clothes. The album was a big success in the UK and Europe, but achieved disappointing sales in the US, when audience still seemed to hanker for Michael, the pop superstar, rather than a more serious artist that he had aspired to become. He was voted Best British Male at the Brit Awards and won the title Songwriter of the Year for the third time at the Ivor Novello Awards. The death of his mother from cancer saw him spiral into another round of depression. He told GQ magazine that he had contemplated suicide and had been only dissuaded by the support of his partner, Kenny Goss. Kenny Goss. In 1998, he was arrested in Beverly Hills public toilet by an undercover police officer and charged engaging in a lewd act. He was fined and sentenced to 80 hours of community service, initially persuaded him to go public about his sexuality and his relationship with Kenny Goss, a Dallas businessman. He continued to record, releasing an album of cover tracks in 1999 entitled Songs from the Last Century, before spending 2 years writing and recording the album Patience, which was released in 2004. It has been seen as something of a comeback, achieving instant success in the UK and reaching number 12 in the US market. It seems to have rejected him. Following a release of Patience, he told the BBC that they would no longer make albums for the public sale, and he would instead offer his music for free download and ask for donations. In 2006, he set off his first tour, 15 years, and became the first artist to perform. He fought hard to be accepted as a serious songwriter and record producer, and successfully adapted his style to suit more mature audience, all while struggling with depression and doubts over his sexuality. He will be remembered as one of the more enduring musicians of the 80s generation. This has been Tom Doody. Ciao, George Michael.